On December 20th, 1943, a heavily damaged American B-17 Flying Fortress struggled through the overcast skies above northern Germany. The aircraft had been torn apart by flak and fighter attacks. Its tail section was shredded, several engines were out or trailing smoke, and large holes gaped through the fuselage. One crew member had been killed. Most of the others were wounded. The bomber was barely airborne and had fallen far behind its formation. A Luftwaffe Messerschmitt Bf 109 closed in from behind. The German pilot had a clear shot. One burst would have ended the encounter, but he did not fire. What followed became one of the most remarkable episodes of mercy recorded in the air war over Europe. The aircraft was a B-17F named Olde Pub, assigned to the 379th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force. Its pilot was Second Lieutenant Charles L. Brown, 21 years old, from Western West Virginia. Brown had grown up on a farm, joined the Army Air Forces, and trained as a bomber pilot. This mission was the first full combat operation for his crew, a group of 10 young airmen who called themselves the Quiet Ones. Their target that day was Bremen, Germany, specifically the Focke-Wulf aircraft factory producing FW-190 fighters. The 8th Air Force was in the midst of a punishing daylight bombing campaign, suffering heavy losses. Olde Pub took off from Kimbolton Airfield in England and joined the large formation crossing the North Sea. Over the target, the flak was intense, black bursts filling the sky. German fighters, FW-190s and Bf-109s, attacked in waves. The crew defended their position. They later received credit for at least 1 or 2 enemy aircraft destroyed. But the cost was severe. A 20mm cannon shell killed the tail gunner, Sergeant Hugh Eckenrode. Waist gunner Alex Yelisanko was badly wounded in the leg.
It's soaked through. I know. Hold still. We're almost home. Thanks.
Radio operator Dick Petchout took shrapnel in the eye. Ball turret gunner Sam Blackford's feet froze when his electrically heated suit failed. Charlie Brown was hit in the shoulder. The co-pilot, the bombardier, and the navigator were also injured. 2 engines were knocked out. Control surfaces were damaged. Hydraulic and oxygen lines were severed. The bomber dropped out of formation. It was now alone, limping westward. Franz Stigler was a 28-year-old Luftwaffe Oberfeldwebel with 27 confirmed aerial victories. Before the war, he had flown as a civilian pilot for Lufthansa, carrying passengers across Europe. After joining the Luftwaffe, he flew combat in North Africa, and then in the defense of the Reich. He was nearing the award of the Knight's Cross. One more heavy bomber would almost certainly secure it. That morning, Stigler was at an airfield near Bremen. His Messerschmitt Bf-109 had been hit earlier in the day by a .50 caliber round that pierced the radiator. While the plane was being repaired, he heard the unmistakable sound of a low-flying 4-engine bomber. He looked up and saw it, a B-17 trailing smoke, flying low and slow. Stigler climbed into his fighter and took off, even though the engine was not fully repaired and risked overheating. He quickly caught up to the straggling bomber and approached from the rear. As Stigler closed in, he expected defensive fire from the bomber's waist and tail guns. None came. Drawing nearer, he saw the reason. Through the large holes torn in the fuselage and tail, he could see the American crew. Wounded men helping one another, some slumped in their positions, bandages visible, blood on the floor. The guns were unmanned. The bomber could not fight back. Stigler later recalled that the sight reminded him of men in parachutes, helpless and defenseless. He remembered a standing order from his commander in North Africa, Gustav Rödel. Any pilot who fired on a man in a parachute would face execution. In Stigler's mind, these men were no different. He made his choice. Instead of attacking, he moved his Messerschmitt alongside the B-17. Charlie Brown, looking out the left window, saw the German fighter flying wingtip to wingtip. He prepared for the end. But no attack came. The German pilot raised his hand and saluted. Stigler then gestured, pointing downward toward Germany, surrender and land, then toward the horizon. Sweden, neutral territory. Brown shook his head. He intended to reach England. Stigler nodded. He then took up an escort position. For the next several minutes he flew formation with the crippled bomber, protecting it from other Luftwaffe fighters that might attack. As they approached the German coast, anti-aircraft batteries tracked the pair. Seeing the Bf-109 flying alongside the B-17, the flak crews held their fire. Stigler escorted the bomber out over the North Sea. When they were safely beyond German territory, he saluted once more, rocked his wings in farewell, and turned back toward the continent. The American crew watched the fighter disappear. Charlie Brown and his surviving crew managed to keep Olde Pub in the air long enough to cross the English Channel. They crash-landed at Seething Airfield in Norfolk. The bomber was so badly damaged that it never flew another combat mission. The crew survived, with the exception of Sergeant Eckenrode. Because of the unusual nature of the encounter, the incident was classified, and the crew was ordered not to discuss it publicly. Franz Stigler returned to his airfield. He filed no claim for the bomber and told no one what had happened. Had his superiors learned that he deliberately spared an enemy aircraft, he could have faced a court-martial or execution. He kept silent about the event for more than 4 decades. Years later, Charlie Brown could not forget the German pilot who had let them live. He searched records and wrote letters, trying to identify the man. In 1990, at a reunion of former pilots, Brown shared the story publicly for the first time. Sometime afterward, he received a letter from Canada. The writer was Franz Stigler. When they spoke on the telephone, Stigler described details, the salute, the gestures, the escort, that only the man in the cockpit could have known. Brown wept. The two men met in person later that year. Former enemies embraced. They talked for hours and remained in contact afterward. They visited each other's homes. They met one another's families. Charlie Brown named his grandson after Franz Stigler. Franz wrote in Charlie's copy of the book that told their story, "To my friend Charlie, I love you." Franz Stigler died in March 2008 at the age of 92. Charlie Brown died in November of the same year at the age of 86. Their story was documented in the book A Higher Call by Adam Makos, based on interviews with both men and their crews. It remains one of the clearest examples from the Second World War that even in the most brutal conflict, individual conscience could rise above orders, ideology, and national hatred. Two men, one moment, a higher call.